My driver Henry dropped me off at the curb in front of the house. Christmas shopping in the morning wasn't bad, and we managed to get here from my estate in time. "What time do you want to leave today, sir?" he asked. "Probably 5 o'clock, Henry, and please, for the 1000th time, call me Chris." I slid into the luxurious leather seat and walked out the back door of my Rolls-Royce, treading carefully through the puddles on the sidewalk. My shoes cost $1,000 a pair, and while I could easily afford new ones, I cared about them. I also didn't want to splatter the pants of my $5,000 suit or my expensive cashmere coat. The doorman respectfully held the door for me while Henry drove the limo to my private parking space beneath the building. I used the reflective glass to check that my new $8,500 gold empa tie was lying flat. It was woven from real gold threads interwoven with silk. I fiddled with it for a while before walking through the door. I waved to the ladies at the front desk, knowing they'd already gotten word that the boss was in the building. The newly erected 20-foot Christmas tree next to the reception desk glittered with multicolored lights. The tinsel hanging from the branches twisted and twirled in the light currents of air, shimmering in all colors. Fake presents were spread under the tree. Last night, the employees had gathered for an office decorating party. As the CEO of the company, I should have been there, but the game on TV beckoned more. As I headed for my office, I marveled again at the antique Greek marble we were using for the floors and walls. It had been taken from a 300-year-old Greek villa that had been damaged in an earthquake and brought in at considerable expense. Contrasting with the rich woodwork that adorned my massive corner office, it gave the impression of a company doing very well. Expensive original paintings hung on the wall, complementing the lavish furniture and huge desk imported from Italy. With handmade wool carpets scattered everywhere, it was a very comfortable place to work. The view of the entire city often distracted me. The floor-to-ceiling views of the ocean and mountains were breathtaking. The city officials had decorated all the trees on the street with Christmas lights, and along with the buildings and decorated houses that could be seen in the distance, it looked beautiful. Beautiful, but in my opinion, wasteful. I've come a long way since we started. Traveled a long way from nothing to get here. We now own the entire building from bottom to top, mortgage-free. We have a factory outside the city, and I expected to pay off that loan within the next 6 months. That would leave the whole company debt-free and worth hundreds of millions. I stood at the window and looked out at the world with a feeling of great satisfaction. Life was good. Christmas was approaching, and I was thinking about what to get myself. I had my eye on a Ferrari Scaglietti, although the price tag of $4.8 million seemed a bit high. The Lamborghini Aguista was only $2.6 million. I briefly considered buying both cars. I could afford it. True, I'd have to expand the garage. Rolls-Royce, Porsche, and Corvette already filled it. The car salesman followed me around to decide if I wanted one for Christmas. It seemed a little ostentatious, though. I would have waited a little longer. The door behind me opened, and my assistant, Laura, squeezed into the room, holding a steaming cup of my favorite Kopi Luwak coffee. Coffee beans make their way through the digestive system of the civet, a creature that resembles something between a raccoon and a cat. The beans are harvested by hand from their excrement and brought here from Indonesia. Depending on availability, they cost between $100 and $500 a pound. But the coffee is incredible, and I only share it with our best customers. As always, I admired her trim figure, crossing the office carefully, careful not to spill the precious liquid. She was stunning. 28 years old, only 5 years younger than me, and I'd always had an undeclared desire for her. I'd thought about asking her out more times than I could remember, but the company had ironclad rules against fraternization, and my invitation would have violated them. She was the first employee I hired when I could afford it after starting the company. A young, energetic, 22-year-old girl. Fresh out of college with a business management degree and eager to get started in the business world. She had a failed marriage and a young son from her disappearing college husband. I never could remember the child's name, but I knew he was about 7, maybe 8 years old. She handed me my coffee, and I considered her height 5 feet 2 inches, dark hair curling down to chest level, a cute button nose, and warm dark brown eyes you could get lost in. If she weighed more than 110 pounds, I wondered. Even though I tried not to, my eyes continued to travel down her body. I didn't want to give the impression that I was scrutinizing her. I frowned, noticing that her skirt looked a little frayed. We wanted to make a good impression here on the executive floor, and we had to dress accordingly. As if reading my mind, she smiled, "I need to replace this skirt, but it's a favorite and it's hard to give it up." I nodded my head. She would take care of the problem. "So, what's on the agenda?" "There's actually very little time today. We're entering the Christmas quiet period." She held out a clipboard to show me my appointments. She was right, nothing was that big of a deal. Unlike many days when we started out, we spent 12 to 14 hours each to cover everything. She was always supportive of me. I made a decision. "There's nothing here you can't handle. Call Henry and have him bring the car to the house. Call my club and see if you can find a racquetball partner, then make reservations for my lunch. After lunch, have them book a massage session at Michael's. Make it a long one. I have a bit of a headache from all the things my personal trainer has subjected me to over the past few days. Could you also call home and let Berta know I want to have an early dinner? There's another game tonight." "Got it, boss." "Seriously, Laura, how many times do I have to ask you to call me Chris?" In the early days it was Chris, but then she started calling me boss. "I'm sorry. What's going to happen tomorrow?" Laura tapped the keyboard with a confused look on her face to call up tomorrow. "Tomorrow has an appointment in the morning, then lunch and part of the afternoon." "I'm sorry, Chris, I don't remember booking this appointment, and I've looked everywhere. There's no record of it. I have no idea how it happened and I can't tell you who it is or what it's about. I'm very sorry." "Well, I guess we'll be flying by the seat of our pants tomorrow." She grinned to take away the embarrassment. Truth be told, Laura made damn few mistakes, and certainly none this big. It was a lot of unexplained reception time. I slipped into my Vicuna cashmere coat, which had cost me $21,000. They were incredibly rare, and I had only acquired it thanks to a friend associated with the company. They produced exactly 100 of these coats a year. Another thought occurred to me. "I've noticed that whiskey has become scarce, Laura. Could you try to get me some more 50-year-old Balvenie? The last bottle cost us $50,000. See if you can find something at $37,000. "Yeah, it was this fast last time, but I have a supplier at the 37th mark, so I'll order some today." Maybe we should order 2 or 3, or even half a dozen. The price of them keeps going up and up, so maybe we can save a few bucks by ordering more. "Gotcha, boss." I shook my head. This was turning into a constant battle between us. Would she ever change and start calling me Chris again? Laura headed for the exit, and I stared after her, as I always did. She stopped at the door and glanced over her shoulder at me, the way she did every time. She knew I would stare, and I knew I would stare. My heart raced with desire. She was adorably cute, and I waited for her with trepidation. Unfortunately, there was only a pro in the club. The unofficial rule of the club members was to bet 100 or 2 on the winner of each game. Many times that was easy money for me. But the pro would easily beat me and I would throw money away betting against him. Lunch was excellent, on one of the no-menu days. It was the chef's own creation, accompanied by a fine wine. I savored every bite. I have no idea how much the entire meal cost. There was no invoice, it went to my account and once a month it was sent to my company for payment. I'm happy to say that Michael's massage was worth every penny, including the $50 tip I left. The sore spots disappeared like dew on a lawn in the morning sun. After taking a shower, I felt completely refreshed. Henry drove me home and I had a dinner of sirloin steak and lobster with fresh vegetables that Berta had prepared for dinner. I went through several chefs until I found Bertha. Although not certified, she was a culinary whisperer and worked magic in my kitchen. That's how a personal trainer came about. He diligently trained my ass to keep it from turning me into a blimp. The domestic battles between Berta and the trainer were legendary. The coach insisted that I needed a strict diet of vegetables and small portions of lean meat, no desserts. In response, she threatened to smash the ladle over his fat head if he didn't get out of her kitchen and let her cook all the good stuff. It's a coincidence made in heaven. I refused to get involved, I would gladly take his pain from working out over her incredibly delicious creations. With a full belly, I settled into a leather chair with a cry. Stalled glass of my personal Balvenie whiskey, no ice. The chair was custom made with Bluetooth so I could control my 80-inch TV as well as surround sound for listening to music, videos, or television. A plaster cast was taken of my body and the chair was customized. It was equipped with vibration, heating, and electronic motors that allowed me to set the chair in the perfect position. I could even answer the phone and ring the doorbell without moving from my seat. The whole room cost me almost $80,000. Of course, compared to the $2 million I'd paid for a 5-acre estate with a 10,000 square foot house and an Olympic-sized swimming pool, renovating the TV room was nothing. I turned on the game and sat back to watch. By the end of the first quarter, my team was down by 1 touchdown and I was hungry for food, so I headed to the pantry. My favorite treats were salted Ripple chips and garlic chip dip. Both were on my trainer's hit list. He regularly went through the pantry, throwing out all the treats. Bertha, my partner in crime, tossed him a few bags to distract him and let him think he had gotten everything. For nights like this, we set up another hiding place that he couldn't get to. I poured myself another finger of Balvenie, admiring the color and subtle aroma of the liquid gold. The gold was just right. This little piece had to be worth a couple $1,000s. I bought a bag of chips and a chip dip and headed back to the second quarter. After watching my team suffer another defeat, I headed upstairs and climbed into bed with some comfortable Charlotte Thomas linens that cost me $2,500. Made of merino wool and other expensive materials, they were incredibly luxurious and comfortable. I was about to buy a Vividus mattress for $145,000, but at the last minute I decided to cheapen it by buying a Kloof mattress for $30,000. The difference in comfort was minimal. I saved over $100,000 and slept just as well. I was proud of my restraint. I turned on the TV in my bedroom and tuned it to my favorite porn channel. I called up one of the videos I had bookmarked, with a girl who looked a lot like my assistant Laura. Taking some lotion from the nightstand, I began watching the video while gently stroking myself. When it came to my favorite scene, I went over the edge and cum squirted on my chest and I whispered her name softly. Laura. The girl of my dreams. Unattainable by my own rules, unless I fired her. I couldn't do that because I had no idea how she felt about me. I felt like she really liked me, but I couldn't even ask and she couldn't tell me. Not for the first time, I cursed the system I had created that kept me from finding out. After I cleaned myself up, I pulled out my favorite photo from under my pillow, a selfie I'd taken a few years ago. We were working late and had taken a break for dinner. The photo captured our faces smiling and laughing as we ate. Laura's beautiful radiant face never left me as I fell asleep. The next morning I walked into the reception area for my mystery appointment with 10 minutes to spare. I frowned when I saw that all the lights were off. Only a small Christmas tree, which Laura had obviously decorated herself, lit up the room. Damn, I'd forgotten that yesterday she'd asked me to help her decorate our office for Christmas. She must have been so disappointed when I'd thoughtlessly left early like that. Maybe it was for the best. Working closely with her was a torment. During the day I could tolerate her going in and out of my office, but being around her for long periods of time, I never felt the urge to hug her. To kiss her. To carry her in my arms and never let her out of my sight again. But Laura was nowhere to be seen, and the door to my office was open. It should have been locked. There was a lot of confidential information in there. It was strange. In all the years we'd been working, Laura had always been waiting for me. I entered my office and hung my coat on the coat rack. My chair was opposite the window, and as I approached the desk, I was shocked when it suddenly shook. Mrs. Carrington, what are you doing here and where is Laura? Is she all right? I asked, suddenly alarmed that her mother was waiting and Laura was missing. Laura's going to be a little late this morning. I turned off her alarm clock. Sit down, she commanded, pointing to the chair in front of my desk. Something's up. It was pretty offensive behavior, but a little tickle in my brain told me that sitting here might be the smartest move. She gave me an impassive look. I saw the way you look at my daughter. Do you love her? Wow, right to the point. I immediately wanted to tell her it was none of her business, but something in her gaze told me my answer was important. Now was not the time. Yes, even more than I can tell you, I admitted. But I set up these stupid rules of fraternization in the company years ago and I dare not say anything. She nodded. I thought so. Today you and I are going on a journey. You will have questions, but you must save them for later. You'll figure out when to ask them yourself. Just so you know, I'm the one who took possession of Laura's tablet and keys at home and booked this time for you. She had nothing to do with it and has no idea I'm here. She looked at her watch. We need to get going if we want to make it through the first leg of our journey. Okay, I agreed. The few times I'd met Laura's mom, she seemed like a frivolous woman, not the type to waste time without serious intentions. She went to a lot of trouble for this. Whatever it was, it had to be pretty damn important for her to decide to take such drastic measures. I'll call Henry and get a limo. No limo, she said as she walked around the table and rummaged through her bag, pulling out a windbreaker. Ditch the jacket, you'll need this. She grabbed my phone off the table and snatched my wallet from my back pocket while I put on my jacket and tossed them into her purse. Hello, protested I. You won't need them. I have to leave Laura a note. There's no time and I've already done it. Let's go, we can't be late. She grabbed my hand and dragged me towards the door. Once outside, she hurried to the bus stop just in time for us to catch the departing bus. Standing in the doorway and waiting for the guy in front to pay his fare, she remarked, "Good thing we made it in time, or we would have had to wait an hour for the next one, as Laura often does when she's late for work." That was news to me. Sometimes she waited here for an hour at a time? I frowned. Some of those evenings were quite late, and despite this being a large office building in a decent neighborhood, the place was deserted in the evening. I didn't like that thought. She showed the bus driver her bus pass and told me to pay the fare. I pointed to her purse, which contained my wallet. She shook her head. Nope, not gonna take it. I rummaged through my pocket until I found enough change. You'd better ask for a bus pass, she ordered. We'll be changing from one bus to another several times, and unless you have a lot of change, you'll have to walk. One of the passengers said, "Come on, buddy, we all have to go to work and you're holding up the bus." I'm sorry, I've never ridden transportation before. I have no idea how it works. He only made a sound of disgust and turned away to look out the window, muttering something to himself. Perhaps it was a compliment to the season. Maybe it wasn't. Everyone seemed to be looking at Laura's mom and I as we walked down the aisle and took our seats. How long a drive is it? I asked. About 20 minutes. Can I at least use my phone and play a game or do some work? No, came the firm reply. Laura can't afford her own phone. She's not allowed to use the phone you gave her outside of the office unless she answers your call. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. By the time we made our stop, I was bored out of my mind counting the rivets on the ceiling of the bus. 72 rivets per ceiling panel, for those interested in such trivia. I had to admit that the bus was comfortable and quiet. I noticed a sign that read air conditioning. The high-backed seats were streamlined and seemed to hug my body. I wondered why many people complain about the quality of the buses. I found it very comfortable. We got off and I was informed that we would wait 30 minutes for the next bus. When 15 minutes had passed, I was already shivering from the cold. I pointed to a coffee shop across the street. "If you give me my wallet, I'll go buy us a couple cups of coffee to keep us warm." "Laura can't afford coffee," came the rude refusal. "But I'm getting cold," the shivering intensified. "Why are you cold?" she asked. "Don't you recognize the jacket? It's the same one Laura wears." "Laura has a nice warm jacket, I gave it to her for her birthday," I protested. "She had a jacket, you mean?" "She had a nice warm jacket until she had to sell it to pay her and David's rent." "You had to sell your jacket to pay the rent?" I was starting to guess what this was about, but jealousy bit me hard. "David is her boyfriend?" She threw me a look of disgust. "I don't know what that girl sees in you. You've been working with her for years, surely she's mentioned her son David once or twice? And you don't even remember his name?" "Oh hell, of course it was her son." Immediate jealousy at the mere mention of the man's name clouded my mind. Not to mention the fact that I was shaking like crazy. I just shook my head. Sorry, brains out, was the best I could offer. I was so excited to see the second bus arrive. It wasn't so warm inside, but definitely warmer than outside. How much longer do we have to wait? 30 minutes, followed a terse reply. When we got off at the next stop, I was still shivering. Bored, I studied the mat they used for the floor in that tour of the bus. You could see that the system was designed for someone to come in with a high-pressure hose and quickly wash the bus. But the mat had a flaw. The design did not allow it to drain on its own and dry easily. I saved that for the future. You never know where business will take us. The bus itself was a model of poor design. The seat was made of metal pipes, and there was a metal bar behind my head. I could only imagine the whiplash damage to my skull if we were in an accident. The plastic vinyl seats were a bench-like seating arrangement, which didn't offer much comfort. The bus was obviously quite old and looked accordingly. Tired, faded colors, dirty windows, and a faint smell of decay. The motor was noisy and interfered with conversation. Despite the cold, I didn't regret leaving him behind when we got off at the next stop. What now, Mrs. Carrington? I asked. We're taking a walk, she said as we walked out, and you can call me Mom, everyone does. 3 blocks later we reached one of the huge grocery stores with low prices. When was the last time you went grocery shopping? She asked. It's been years, I admitted. Well, you hit the spot, she grinned, holding out the list to me. This is the cheapest grocery store in town. Why did I get the feeling I wouldn't find pleasure in it? I went through her list, I could do it. I grabbed the stroller and hit the road. I'll wait for you at the register, she said. Shopping was a shock. The prices for food, in my opinion, were exorbitant. Especially meat prices, which made you feel like someone had a gun to your head. To pass the time, I ran a game in my head, trying to guess the price before I found the item. In almost every case, I ended up miles below my guess. The stuff was expensive. I finished, proud of myself, and then I had to stand in a long line. There were not enough cashiers. At least it was warm. Finally I got through, and there was a little over $280 on the register. I reached into my wallet and my mom pulled it out. Oh, great, she said, pulling out the few $1,000s in cash I kept in it. I was afraid I'd have to pay for this part. She handed me $200. I pointed to the cash register. There's $280 here. She pointed to the pile of food on the conveyor belt. This is what 2 people need to survive, then pointed to the cash in my hand. This is what Laura can afford. You'll have to give some of it away. Come on, I whined. Just give me cash or my credit card. I'll give her everything. You're a smart man, Chris. Laura makes decisions like this all the time. Surely you're just as cool as she is, aren't you? The caustic note in her voice made me believe that she was thinking quite differently. I have never been so embarrassed in my life. Obviously, the meat needed to be brought back. I tried to choose something that I thought would be nutritious and long-lasting, but honestly, I had no idea. Really, none. Someone took care of all of this for me and someone else paid for it. The long line mumbled unpleasant words to me as I sorted through and made decisions. Eventually I managed to bring the bill down to $200, and we left the store, me clutching 4 heavy bags of groceries. Outside, I turned to my mom. Okay, I get it. I'll give her a raise. She slapped me so fast I didn't realize the blow. I staggered and almost dropped my groceries, her palm burning hotly against my face. Don't you dare think it's just about the money, this little, 5-foot ball of fury growled in my face. You don't know the half of it. Just shut up and keep doing what you're told. I had 6 feet of height in me, but I trembled before this demonic woman. This way, asshole, she muttered and walked away. I followed obediently, carrying the heavy bags. By the time we walked the 3 blocks to the bus stop, the groceries were getting heavy in my hands. Couldn't we get a cab for all this? I asked. She threw me a fearful look. Maybe not, I conceded. She looked at her watch. Sorry you were at the grocery store so long, we missed the bus. The next one will be here in 45 minutes. 45 minutes later, I was frantically pacing the bus stop, trying to keep warm. My hands felt like lead and numb as I tried to hold on to my bags. I could feel my mind fogging up and I couldn't think straight. I was in the first stage of hypothermia. I was excited to see this bus, but my mom had to go through my pockets looking for a bus pass. Obviously, I should have known to get it before grabbing all the groceries. I couldn't put them on the ground because it was too wet and the bags could get wet and tear. She informed me that the next time I messed up, she would leave me standing on the sidewalk. 30 minutes into the bus ride, holding on to those damn groceries, we made it to the next stop. I couldn't put them on the ground, there was standing room only on the bus, and the seats were taken. The bus itself was a disaster. The loud, noisy motor was belching out huge puffs of black smoke that seemed to permeate every inch of material inside. The rubber mats had rubbed through to the metal floor. The seats were torn and tattered. Several of the posts that were supposed to allow people to hold on when they stood were missing. I hadn't realized the transportation fleet had such decrepit vehicles. The unshaven driver was unkempt, shirt unbuttoned, cigarette dangling from his mouth, despite the many mangled no smoking signs that adorned the bus. He was shouting profanities at more than one vehicle on the road that came into his field of vision. I heard him explicitly suggest that a woman get off the bus. It was disgusting. The city outside the window had changed. In the closed entrances of empty stores, you could often see drunk or drug-addled loiterers sleeping it off and shopping carts parked nearby. Along the road were ruined houses that had not been painted in a long time. Boarded-up windows everywhere testified to abandonment or lack of money for even simple repairs. There were occasional clean and well-maintained houses, but these were only isolated specimens trying to withstand the storm of poverty. The next stop was an eye-opener. The windows in the bus stop had been smashed out, and old posters hung in tattered pieces from the remaining support frame and remnants of glass. The floor was filthy with cigarette butts, broken glass, and other debris beyond description. I couldn't even imagine the last time the place had been cleaned. Mom went for a brisk walk, and I followed, carrying the damn groceries. If Laura can do it, so can I. Down in the street I saw kids playing ball despite the cold. Closer to us, two rough-looking types came out onto the road. "Mom?" One of them asked questioningly, looking at me suspiciously. "It's okay, Mike, he's Laura's boss." "Laura's boss? Is that the bastard?" Spoke his eyes, which clearly read contempt. Contempt that he reinforced by spitting phlegm on my expensive suit pants. I shifted the grocery bags, staring in disbelief at the phlegm dripping down my pants. The other guy muttered asshole at me, and they left. Mom's face watched me impassively. The words were failing me. "Laura is very popular and you might be unpopular here," she suggested and started walking again. The neighborhood was a slum with unimproved tenement houses lining the street. There were wrecked cars that had been dismantled and abandoned. Others had become charred blackened hulks. The people looked rough and unfriendly. I was stunned and asked, "Does Laura walk around here at night?" I knew I wasn't going to like the answer when Mom's face turned bright red. "What kind of stupid question is that, Chris? You stay out late sometimes and she's always been there for you." "Yeah, she walks around here late at night. In the rain, the snow, the cold. What the fuck do you think, Chris?" After a long, miserable, almost 2-hour bus ride home, when she often has to wait at dark, lonely stops. At times she has to carry her groceries here late at night because you don't think about working weekends, leaving her no time to shop. You also don't pay her extra for overtime. Have I mentioned the nights when the buses run so late that she has to dig through her and David's grocery money to pay for a cab home? When that happens, she needs the help of the food bank or they'll starve to death. The last words she literally spit out. I was at a loss for words. I'd never really thought about how she got home when we worked late. I just assumed. Oh shit, that's the word. It was an old joke, but so true. I remembered Tony Randall from the old TV show The Odd Couple doing a courtroom scene where he scribbled the word assume on the chalkboard in response to a witness testimony. She assumed something. When you assume, you turn ace yourself and me. I was an ass when I thought she was fine. By this time we had reached the children's game, and a boy came running up to us, Grandma. His mom hugged him. David, this is Chris, your mom's boss. His mood immediately soured, and I realized I wasn't on his wish list. I tried to distract him. Do you like baseball? He nodded. What positions do you play? I like first base, he admitted. I looked at his mitten. It was a catcher's mitt, badly frayed, and the seams were barely holding on. How the hell do you play first base in a catcher's mitt? His clothes were neat and clean, but badly worn and faded. I put my foot in my mouth. Have you ever been to a major league game? He stared at me as if he had just discovered dog shit on his treadmills. He got angry. No, never. Thanks to you, there's too much money left over at the end of the month. David, his mom cautioned him. I can hear you and Mom talking. He shouted angrily over his shoulder and ran back to his game. I was shocked. An 8-year-old had just given me one of the most humiliating moments of my life. I should be sorry for his behavior. But I can't say I am, Mom said. No, don't apologize. He's right. This is entirely my fault, and I'm going to make it right. This is just the beginning, Chris, she said, turning toward the building. Just the beginning? My mind grasped the thought with disbelief. How much worse could it be? Feeling awkward, I followed my mom into the building. I'd eat that thought. It's the worst idea ever. To put it mildly, the building stank. It had obviously not been maintained. The odors of stale food were overwhelming. The stench of urine, rot, and unwashed people made me want to vomit. The elevator had a tattered, long and used out-of-service sign hanging on it like it had been there for years, so we went up 3 floors. When I entered Laura's apartment, I looked around, and my heart sank. A kitchen table and 2 chairs, clearly second-hand, scratched, dented, and broken in places. A tiny couch, the gaps in which were covered with duct tape, stood in front of a 12-inch rear projection TV. Something I hadn't seen in years. Mom noticed me looking at the TV. It doesn't work, and she can't afford to fix it or buy a new one. Even if she could, she can't afford cable. Come here, she waved her hand toward the closed door. I opened it and almost fell in. On the floor, there was a baby mattress in one corner and a single mattress in the other. A sheet was draped around the large mattress for privacy. Next to the small bed, a spruce branch with a few Christmas lights was attached to the wall. Underneath it lay a couple of small wrapped presents. Farther away lay a few books and a tiny reading lamp. Laura and David share a room, Mom pointed out. I barely made it to the heavily stained sink before I threw up my rather expensive breakfast. How could I have been so blind? To do that to the woman I loved? I turned away from the sink, tears covering my eyes. I can fix this, Mom. Once again, I didn't notice the blow. I fell to my knees, my face turning purple. God, that woman had a nasty right hook. She lashed out at me with fury. You think it's just Laura? You pathetic idiot. Think about the bigger picture. Probably almost half of your employees are living like this because you pay them so poorly. What? I gasped. Half of my staff? Your people believe in you, Chris, but you let them down by living in your palace and ordering $250,000 worth of expensive scotch. Yeah, I heard about that. Your employees are starving. David's never been to the dentist. Did you know that? But we have dental insurance. Yes, 50%. But where does the other 50% come from? If she spends money on dental, she has to give even more at the checkout counter, and my daughter and grandson don't eat out. It's the same with doctors and prescriptions. Many of your employees are suffering. Many manage to get through the month only because of the charity of the food banks. God, I was terrified. What had I done? I sat on the floor, not caring about my expensive clothes, and cried heartily. Was it really true? Had I been so careless? Have so many people suffered because of my neglect? Mom sat down on the floor next to me and put my head in her lap, stroking my hair. You were once a good man, Chris. You had a fire in your belly that was driven to succeed. You inspired Laura and many others to follow you and work hard to help build your business. Somewhere along the way, you lost sight of them. You became engrossed in self-improvement, ignoring their well-being. Yet Laura has never once criticized you, despite everything you've seen today. This girl is madly in love with you and absolutely devoted. I was pierced by a ray of hope. Laura loves me? Yes, she is. I think she's just nuts about you. But no more than that, Chris. Your competitors have offered her 3 times what you're paying her. They'd like her to start work right after Christmas. They've been after her for years because she knows the business inside and out. She's turned them down every time out of loyalty to you. I told her if she turned it down, I wouldn't help her anymore. I helped her with my small pensions as best I could. But as you can see, it's not enough. She has to give them an answer before today, and then she will be history. She'll be gone. It's disgusting that a wonderful hard-working person like her and my grandson should have to live like this. There was no time to waste. I needed Laura like I needed the air I breathe or the food I eat. She'd been with me almost from the beginning. Most of the success I've had has been because of her. Not that I discount the untold hours that other employees gave so freely to me when we first started. For the first time in my life, I found myself not loving myself. How could I have been so blind, so selfish, and missed it all? Despite professing my love, I had never even considered the circumstances of Laura or my other co-workers. I was self-centered in vain. Here was a woman who had my back in a time of need, oblivious to her horrible personal circumstances that she had gotten herself into through my negligence. She never complained once. It was time to pull myself together. I struggled to my feet, wiped away my tears, and held out my hand. My wallet and phone, please. Mom made a stubborn look on her face. Mom, we can take the bus back, and if you insist, I'll do it. I'll still be learning, but I get it. You're 100% right. It's 1 o'clock now, and I need to get on this now. A minute lost is an unresolved issue. I need to recruit and start working to fix this. My emotions took over and I turned to her with a heartfelt plea. Please, Mom, I can't lose Laura. I just can't. I stood there with tears in my eyes, begging for mercy. She reluctantly handed over my things. I'm sure she felt the need to torture me some more, and I couldn't blame her. I was a complete asshole with a capital A. Get David ready, we'll leave as soon as my car is here. When the 3 of us and Henry walked into the office, Laura's eyes got really big. Mom, what did you do? She asked cautiously. Something that should have been done years ago. She sank down on the couch. Is there any fancy coffee around here? Honey, make us all one and maybe find a daddy for David. I need Sheila in HR, whatever she's doing, tell her to drop it. Honey? She gasped, bulging her eyes again. Honey, I've been an idiot to you, and I still have a lot to apologize to you for. But now my employees are suffering, and I need to make things right. By the way, here's your new paycheck, I scribbled on a piece of paper. She looked at the paper and hiccuped nervously, then looked at me with tears in her eyes. I knew it was 4 times what she was making now, but I owed her a big debt. Not that she was going to work long if I had anything to say about it. I had other plans for her future. Plans for our future together. I could only hope that she would accept me after the disaster I'd caused. I invited Henry into my office once we'd all had our coffee. I need you to take Laura, her mom, and David shopping today. I'll book them a room at the hotel across the street until I can think of something else. There's no way she's going back to the shithole she lives in. But they'll need clothes and personal items. Walmart? He inquired. No, take her to all the best stores in town. Dresses, pants, shoes, handbags, toiletries, lingerie. Anything she needs and as much as she wants. Use the corporate credit card. Oh, and take David to the sporting goods store, have him buy whatever his heart desires, but make sure he gets a good baseball glove. Any idea how much? I don't care. 10,000, 20, 50, whatever, buy her and David what they need. And let mom pick out something nice, too. Just keep her away from stores that sell brass knuckles. And in fact, get one of those sports jackets you've always admired. Boss, those coats cost $3,000. He gasped. In that case, take 2. Seriously, Henry, things are going to change around here, and it's going to be okay. I am indebted to you and many others for my success, and it's time to pay up. His back became noticeably straighter as he walked out the door to retrieve his charges. Sheila, our human resources director, knocked on my door. I waved her toward the couch and chair and joined her. It's time to ask bluntly, how much less do we pay than the competition? Do you want me to embellish or tell you the truth? Things have to change, Sheila, so let's speak the pure and unvarnished truth. 20 to 30% less, an incomplete benefits plan and no retirement plan, she said. Damn, this was worse than I thought. How did we get to this point, I wondered. I knew I was trying to steer a tight financial course, but this was ridiculous. I realized that I always pushed Sheila away when she wanted to talk about salaries and industry averages. I was too focused on paying off the company's debts as soon as possible. It was a wonder I still had anyone working for me. How much does it cost to fix this? To make us 10% above the industry average? I have to do some calculations to be sure, but my gut tells me we're talking about 2, maybe 3 million. What if we do it retroactively, from the first of the month? She whistled, 3 to 5 million, maybe more. The company had over 50 million in term certificates and bearer bonds for a rainy day. It was a torrential downpour, time to squeeze the money out. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want a room at the hotel across the street on Friday, the day after tomorrow, big enough to fit everyone. Then I want you to. I laid out my plans. That night I met Laura at the hotel for dinner. My breath caught as she followed the maitre d' into the dining room. I don't know what designer dress she was wearing, but she was radiant in it. Almost every male head in the restaurant turned in follow. At her progress, annoying many of the other women. You could bring David, I suggested. She chirped. David, Henry, and Mom went swimming in the hotel pool. David is having a wonderful time here. Thank you for that. They said they'd take care of him for tonight. Are you ready for that? Her face was lit up and excited about something. My curiosity was piqued. Henry and Mommy are very fond of each other. Mommy is already making cow eyes at him. I almost choked. Henry and Mom? Mom making cow eyes at Henry? I didn't see that coming. I couldn't even realize it. Maybe I should increase Henry's health insurance. Around Mommy, people have a way of ending up on their asses. Wow, I suggested, maybe it would calm her down if she got laid. We almost died laughing at the thought. You have bruises on your face. What happened? Your mother has a hell of a right hook. She beat the crap out of me. Very enlightening. But honestly, she was right, and I deserved it for the way I treated you and the others. We talked all through dinner like two people starved for each other. In a way, we were. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Our hands seemed to find each other often. Her touch thrilled me to the core. I knew in my heart that I would love this woman until the day I died. She was my soulmate, and I knew it from the minute she first walked through my door all those years ago. I could only hope that she felt the same way about me. Maybe enough to forgive me. Could there be a place in her heart where forgiveness of my sins was possible? After dinner, we sat on a comfortable couch in the quiet piano bar. Laura snuggled under my arm and rested her head on my shoulder. There was no need for words. We listened to music together and watched the twinkling lights on the large Christmas tree in the lobby. Merry-goers strolled noisily past, coming and going to the various Christmas parties thrown by their employers at the hotel. Something else I had overlooked. It won't happen again. I whispered in her ear, "Do you mind if I kiss you? I've been wanting to do that for a long time." She didn't bother to respond, just sought my lips with hers. It was divine. I had been waiting for this moment for so long. After a while, I realized that the waitress was standing waiting with the bill in her hand, tapping her foot. She had a very funny look on her face. "We're closing now, sir, can we pay the bill?" We were stunned. I glanced at my watch, and we hadn't even noticed that more than 2 hours had passed. Laura blushed with embarrassment, and I pulled out my credit card. We laughed about it all the way to her room and stood at the door, hugging one last time. Looking into her beautiful eyes, I didn't want to ruin the moment, but I had something I needed to explain to her. There are going to be some big changes in the next 2 days. Your job is to stay here and relax. Get a massage, go to the hairdresser, get a manicure. Whatever you want. If you want to take David somewhere, ask Henry to drive you. Buy whatever you need. Henry will help you and take care of the bills. There is a breakfast meeting with all the staff at this hotel Friday morning and I want you there. You and I need to talk about us, and after that we can make some decisions." We kissed goodnight and Angel Wings carried me down the hallway with the biggest smile on my face. I definitely don't remember walking. Sheila and her staff put a lot of effort into organizing Friday's meeting. Everyone enjoyed a huge breakfast at the hotel. After I chose a bar stool in the center of the stage to sit on. It was time to rectify the situation. The crowd fell silent. I began to speak, turning to face the people I had failed so badly. I struggled to keep my voice from trembling with the terrible emotions I was feeling. I'm here this morning to admit that I failed in my role as a leader. I let myself get carried away by my own greedy desires, not realizing that I wasn't taking care of the people who worked so hard to help the company reach its position. My voice trailed off with excitement, but I had to continue. Today we're going to make up for lost time. Sheila and her staff have worked a miracle over the last couple days. They're handing out envelopes to you, but please don't open them until everyone has gotten theirs. Sheila's foresight is to be commended. Somewhere she got the big red envelopes for Santa. They were perfect in terms of content and season. I sat and waited for everyone to sort themselves out and get theirs. Please open them. The crowd applauded and a few "oh my gods" were heard. I smiled as I heard a cheer from behind the curtains. Laura opened hers. I did something nice in there that made me feel a little better. Her paycheck was a 6-figure sum. I exercised my executive prerogatives and added a retroactive bonus that raised it to a 7-figure amount. And then there were the company's stock and stock options. Her dedication and hard work deserved it. Even without me, she was a very well-to-do young woman. I started with the good news: starting today, everyone gets a 30% raise. Second, the check in the envelope represents a refund of that raise to start the year. For most of you, that's a 5-figure sum. There was a loud collective cheer. I waved them away. That's not all. I become aware of some problems with our benefit programs, so as of today, the company is paying 100%. No deductibles, no co-pays. We've also added eyeglasses, prescriptions and pediatric braces, as well as other extras. We also fund a retirement plan with 100% contributions from the company so you can have a comfortable retirement. There were even louder cheers. People were beating their fists on the tables with happiness. I waited until she subsided again. Some of you may have experienced financial problems such as foreclosures due to my greed. I would like to rectify that. Anyone who has a current problem, please come see me in person next week. If it was a past problem, we will find a way to fix it, including co-signing new loans if your credit has been ruined. This time the people were silent, looking at each other. It was unprecedented. Some wit said, "Somebody tell me this isn't April Fool's Day." That got a laugh out of everyone, including me. "Only for you, if you want it to be Larry," I jokingly replied. He shook his head with a laugh. No, he wasn't that impatient. That solves the financial issues, but there's another thing I'd like to change. Years ago, I established a strict policy on employee fraternization. At the time, I was seriously concerned about inappropriate behavior or unwanted advances. What I didn't realize was that sometimes people fall in love. I never wanted to stand in the way of that. Sheila assured me that the company had grown enough that the fraternity rules could be rewritten to allow people to be human. If you have a love interest or want to date and a conflict arises, we can resolve it by moving one party to another leader to prevent any claims of favoritism. If there is no conflict, enjoy each other. If you have been withholding relationships because of our rules, please tell us about it. No punishment will follow. We will find a way to resolve the problem. There is no need to hide anymore. I rose from my chair. Laura, I need you here. She took the stage in one of her new dresses and looked like $1 million. Several wolf whistles followed her, making her blush. What's the matter, Chris? God, she was beautiful. Why did I wait so long to do the right thing? I pulled a small box out of my suit pocket and got down on one knee in front of her to the collective gasp of the audience. Laura, I've been a fool. If you never speak to me again, I will understand. I've loved you forever and I let my own stupidity stop me from telling you that. I don't deserve you after the way I behaved, but I hope you and David will forgive me. Will you marry me? She shouted a loud yes and then jumped on top of me, toppling me onto my back. I slipped the ring onto her finger and the audience gave us a standing ovation. We kissed to seal the deal and stood up. I let them applaud for a minute to get myself off balance, and I whispered a question in Laura's ear. She nodded affirmatively. And with Laura's kind consent, you are all invited to our wedding. I had to stop again because of the cheers. I waved them off. I have to say, all our future staff meetings won't be so good. This elicited a few good-natured cheers. But here's another thing. Take the rest of today off and cash your checks. Take Monday off too, I'm declaring it a long weekend. Go out and enjoy yourself. Spend some money on Christmas, have some fun. Oh, and we'll be closed December 23rd through January 2nd. Paid corporate vacation so you can relax and enjoy Christmas with your family. And thank you. Thank you so much for what you've given this company, and I hope you'll forgive the idiot who overlooked all the good you've brought us. Such jubilation almost made the hotel collapse. When everyone was out the door, Henry and Mom walked toward them, holding hands. David followed behind them. I had to look again. I really didn't see the connection between Henry and Mom. David was different. I could see that I would have to spend a lot of time trying to get him to accept me. There was anger in his eyes. And yet I thought I saw a glimmer of hope. Hope for something better. He'd lived a life of severe poverty in his younger years, all because of me. Well, maybe not entirely. His father had abandoned Laura and David at birth, so he bore some responsibility. I knew instinctively that it wasn't something that could be bought off. His anger at me, at his real father, and probably at all men, was probably very deep. The money to buy stuff is reminiscent of a trip to Disneyland. Lots of fun, but sooner or later the reality of everyday Lee. Faye returns. No, David will require my time and personal effort to be a father to him. To give him back what he was supposed to enjoy in life. Perhaps I needed to find a counselor to help the two of us find our way. To help us overcome his anger. Whatever the future held for us, it was time for me to man up and right my wrongs. Henry looked handsome in his new sports jacket, and Mom was wearing a new dress. Looking at her, I realized where Laura got her looks from. With any luck, that sneaky right hook had bypassed Laura's generation. Mom reached out her hand to shake mine. You have hope, Chris. That was a great performance. Now get busy and marry my girl. And give me some more grandchildren. I looked at Laura and shrugged. I'm not going to disappoint Mom and get slapped around again, honey. There will be 12 grandchildren. She hugged me and looked into my eyes. I can't wait. I was thinking about what happened this morning. It was a good start. However, the road back from Michellaville is long and fraught with difficulties. Looking at my new family, I was confident that now even we, could handle everything. I had the girl of my dreams and a new son. And then there was my future mother-in-law, who had to make sure I flew straight. Clenching my still aching jaw, the either/or was obvious. I felt a peaceful contentment that had long been missing from my life. I took a deep breath, savoring the scent of Laura's hair, feeling her loving softness in my arms. This is going to be the best Christmas ever.